Hello, this is Danya Rose, Managing Principal with the Signal Group, with an overview of the key concepts that go into establishing the right mix between fixed and variable or incentive pay in a sales compensation plan. On this slide, you see an example for a comp plan with a $70,000 base at midpoint and a $30,000 incentive at target. Just to be clear, this is not a recommended pay mix for any particular sales role, just an example so we can talk about the components of pay mix. In this example, the role design calls for a $70,000 base midpoint. In most sales teams, there is some variability in base to recognize differences in the experience and skill level of the different individual salespeople. Normally, a 20% band on either side of the midpoint would provide a reasonable amount of latitude to vary the base. So in this example, any base pay level within $14,000 on either side of the $70,000 or between $56,000 and $84,000 would be considered in range. While the base pay may vary some, we would expect the variable pay to vary more. In this role, the incentive component is $30,000 at target. Some people may earn very little of this target amount, while others earn significantly more than the $30,000 target. But a salesperson who exactly meets expectations would earn $30,000. We would call this a 70-30 pay mix. So, how do you decide how much of the total compensation at target should be in the base and how much should be variable? Role prominence is the primary determinant of pay mix in most sales compensation plans. Role prominence is the degree to which the individual salesperson causes the results on which he or she is measured. That's the degree to which sales success is primarily caused by the skill, initiative, creativity, personal network, level of effort of the individual salesperson, as opposed to the price, product characteristics, delivery, location, brand awareness, or other things that are created more by the company than by the individual salesperson. We don't talk about a specific salesperson being more or less prominent than another. Prominence is a characteristic of a sales role based on how that role is designed to contribute to the company's success. It is not a characteristic of an individual in the role. Prominence is also not importance. In fact, some of the most highly compensated sales roles are relatively low prominence roles. These would be the strategic large account manager roles responsible for the relationship between the company and its most important customers. These people are very important, but the success of their efforts typically depends on the success of an entire team that interacts with those important customers, where they play the role of orchestra conductor more than lead violin. And some of the most highly prominent roles are inside inbound roles, for example, highly transactional with a large number of small deals making up the sales results. Some of the characteristics you might want to consider in assessing role prominence are shown on this slide. First, let's look at lead source. If the company is strong with their marketing and brand awareness and there's always a good set of warm leads for a salesperson to pursue, that's a less prominent role. If the salesperson is generating their own leads based on their personal network and their own marketing activities and their Rolodex, that's a more prominent role. When you think about sales creativity and initiative required in more established companies, there's generally product literature, proposal templates, package solutions already in place. That's less prominent. In a lot of situations in early stage companies especially, salespeople may be creating alliances to solve customer problems, helping to design solutions and package them, and generally doing a lot around making it possible for the customer to get value out of the product being sold. That's more prominent. In terms of level of support for the sales process, if there are separate departments in the company to do everything around the sales process, place and enter orders, expedite, collect, deliver post-sales support, that's less prominent. If the salesperson is doing all the selling and all of that stuff, that's a more prominent role. The market position of the product or service is also key in this. A company with a solid offering that's a clear market leader and a company for which almost no one would consider that purchase without considering that company's product would be a less prominent sales role. If the salesperson is out there trying to explain who the company is, what their offering is, and why they should be considered, that would be a more prominent sales role. When you get back out of the weeds and look at what's going on here, what you see is that the less prominent roles have the characteristic that a fabulous year is not directly caused by the individual contributor salesperson. This is an it takes a village type selling system on the left. Similarly, a disappointing year is not entirely the fault of that salesperson. Whereas in the more high prominence roles on the right, it's much more the salesperson who makes those great years happen and who can be held more fully accountable for the bad year. That's why it makes sense that the best salespeople in the highly prominent sales roles accept less base and more variable pay and also expect to make more upside if they overperform. And it wouldn't be rational for those in the lower prominence roles to put a substantial portion of their market value at risk based on sales performance that depends on much more than their own results. While prominence is usually the right place to look to determine pay mix, there are situations in which pay mix may not be able to align with prominence, and they're listed here. One of them is the case of very long sales cycles. If there are sales cycles that span years, it may not be possible to have a substantial amount of pay at risk, even in a high prominence role, because these salespeople can't live on the lower base from year to year when they're only closing one deal every 2 or 3 years. Another situation is those in which you've got highly specialized and valued skills in the seller. For example, some salespeople are actually medical doctors. In those situations, they can command a very high base salary in the labor market, and it just doesn't leave room for a lot of variable pay in their comp plan, even if it is a higher prominence role. Another situation is startup situations where the company is asking a skilled and talented salesperson to take a bit of a risk because the company itself is somewhat unproven, and they may need to adjust the pay mix in spite of a high degree of role prominence so that the company absorbs a bit of the risk in order to get that very talented person into that position. In this slide, we'll have a look at the motivational implications of a few different levels of pay mix. Recall that a 0-100 pay mix would mean that none of the pay is in the base, so this is a person without a base pay, and 100% of the pay is in the variable piece. So we would probably call this an all-commission salesperson. An all-commission salesperson is highly motivated to close deals and retain your business, and also highly independent. So their attitude would look something like, I'm running my own business inside this company. The sale is mine, the customer is mine, and if I don't make good money at this, I have other opportunities I can pursue. There's a lot of me in that statement. These are independent operators, but very motivated and aggressive. Around 50-50 as a pay mix, so half in the base at midpoint, half in the incentive at target, you'll find motivated salespeople, but with some willingness to accept direction and be a team player within the company. So their attitude might look like, the base is nice, but I can't live on it. If I land the big deal, I'll be all set for months, but don't mess with my territory, my opportunities, or my sales goals, or I'm out of here. You've still got a lot of independence going on, but with a little bit more willingness to accept direction. Around 75-25, so that's mostly base with a meaningful variable or at-risk portion. The salesperson is going to be motivated to sell and willing to try a new company product or execute a new strategy that's not yet proven to that salesperson. And their attitude will look like, making my goal really matters to me. But if I fall a little short, I'll be okay and stick around. Next year could be better. Around 85-15, you're going to find that motivation and engagement really depend more on good management than on the compensation plan. The incentive is a good reminder, a nice reward, but probably not needed to get the bills paid. So the attitude there is often, it's great that we have a bonus program, especially when it pays out. When you step back and look at this whole picture, the key takeaway for me here is that you're trading off motivational value of the comp plans for control. The more you have at risk, the more motivational traction you get from your comp plans. The more you have in the base, the more control you have a right to exert over the activities and direction of your individual contributor salespeople. Asking them to go after a different kind of business, a different kind of customer, sell a new product, rearrange their territories, etc. If you need to manage those kinds of things with your sales team, you're going to need a more substantial base. The answer here is not that there is a specific pay mix that's right and best for all sales roles. The answer is that you really have to match your pay mix to the prominence of your sales role, the degree of motivation versus the degree of control that you need, and that's what gives you the comp plan that's really going to work for your business. Our website includes a lot of great information about sales compensation, plan design, administration, and the tricky questions that come up from time to time. Check out the links on the right to see where you might want to go next for more sales compensation ideas, and thank you for listening.